Now, the UN's top court, that's the International Court of Justice, has ordered Israel to take emergency measures to prevent genocide in Gaza, but stopped short of demanding a ceasefire. The case in The Hague was brought by South Africa, which claims Israel is breaching the UN's Genocide Convention. The acts of genocide include killing members of a group, causing bodily harm, inflicting conditions designed to bring about the destruction of a group, and preventing births. Now, the 17-judge panel also ordered Israel to put in place a string of emergency measures, which include allowing humanitarian aid into the Strip, preventing and punishing incitement to genocide, and protecting Palestinians. The judges, however, did not rule on whether Israel is guilty of genocide in Gaza or not, which may take years to decide. Reacting to the ruling, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says, and I quote, "We will continue to defend ourselves and our citizens while adhering to international law." The court, however, has not ordered for a ceasefire, which was highly anticipated by South Africans and Palestinians across the Gaza Strip. Here's a moment the International Court of Justice President Joan Donoghue delivered the interim ruling.
The court's task is to establish whether the acts and omissions complained of by the applicant appear to be capable of falling within the provisions of the Genocide Convention. In the court's view, at least some of the acts and omissions alleged by South Africa to have been committed by Israel in Gaza appear to be capable of falling within the provisions of the Convention. In light of the following, the court concludes that, prima facie, it has jurisdiction pursuant to Article 9 of the Convention to entertain the case. Given this conclusion, the court considers that it cannot accede to Israel's request that the case be removed from the general list.
South Africa welcomed the measures ordered by the court and hailed what it called a decisive victory for the international rule of law and a significant milestone in the search for justice for the Palestinian people. Here's what President Cyril Ramaphosa had to say.
It is very much our place as a people who know too well the pain of dispossession, discrimination, state-sponsored violence. We are also a people who are the victims of the crime of apartheid. We know what apartheid looks like. We experienced and lived through it. Sadly, many people died and were exiled, like our beloved leader Oliver Tambo and many others. Others were jailed, like the father of our democracy, Nelson Mandela, and many others. That, for us, was the face of apartheid. We as South Africans will not be passive bystanders and watch the crimes that were visited upon us being perpetrated upon other people elsewhere.
Let's now speak to Dr. Charles Adeogun Phillips, a former lead UN genocide prosecutor. He's currently based in Lagos, Nigeria. Thanks for joining us on the program, Dr. Charles. So what does this preliminary ruling mean for Palestine and Israel?
Well, good evening. The ruling is very significant, in my view, as it is indicative of the fact that the court accepts that there is an urgent, real and imminent risk of irreparable prejudice, which will be caused to the rights contained in the convention that are the subject of judicial proceedings. That in essence means that the court has determined prima facie, on a prima facie basis, that Israel's actions against the Palestinians in Gaza are plausibly, on the face of it, genocidal in nature, and to that end has ordered provisional measures on that basis.
And looking at the number of Palestinians who've died and those who've been displaced on the Gaza Strip, why do you think the court did not want to impose an immediate ceasefire?
Well, I think that the court appreciates that under international law, Israel has a right to self-defense. And I think in issuing provisional measures, the court has had to be seen to balance its obligations to both parties. And I think that's why the court may have stayed away from that issue of imposing a ceasefire on the state of Israel.
And what are some of the legal ramifications if Israel does not abide to some of the rulings that were issued today by the court?
Well, as you've rightly pointed out, there are four main enumerated acts under Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, which the court has found prima facie evidence may have been breached or committed by Israel. The orders for provisional measures are binding on the parties. That has been well established since 2001 in a case before the court, the Legrand Brothers judgment of June 2001, where the court found that as a consequence of the court's basic function, which is the judicial settlement of international disputes, provisional measures orders given by the court are certainly binding on the parties. To that extent, I expect that the state of Israel will now take steps to prevent the commission of those enumerated acts, as you pointed out, the four enumerated acts. And I expect that the Republic of South Africa would, in turn, continue to monitor Israel's actions in Gaza and report back to the court on any further violations of those provisional measures granted to it by the court. Those are two significant things that I expect to see moving forward.
And seeing that this is just a preliminary ruling, do you in any way foresee it having an impact on the direction of the case?
Well, yes and no, in the sense that before the court could make a finding on provisional measures and the responsibility of one of the parties, it had to find prima facie certain things. And it made findings that, well, first of all, the civilian population in the Gaza Strip remain extremely vulnerable. It also made a finding that the military operations, which commenced after 7th October 2023, has resulted in tens of thousands of deaths and the destructions of schools, hospitals, and medical facilities, vital infrastructure. It's also found that that operation is more likely than not to last several months. It's also found that Gazans, Palestinians in Gaza rather, have no access to the most basic amenities like foodstuffs, water, electricity. And it's also found that the steps taken by Israel to alleviate the conditions faced by the Palestinians in Gaza are insufficient to remove the risk of irreparable prejudice, which will be caused before the case on the merits is decided. One major thing that strikes me about this ruling is the fact that reference was made to the public comments made by several high-ranking public office holders in Israel, which the court inferred as being sufficient on the face of it to conclude that those comments may constitute direct and public incitement to genocide of the Palestinian people, civilians in Gaza. Those are very significant findings by the court, which they had to make.